All right, we are welcoming in our guests, 18, 24, 30. We'll let them roll in. Tim, thanks for joining us today. Really appreciate you making the time.
Terrific. Thanks for having me, Aaron.
Where are you situated during this pandemic and joining us from today?
Well, I'm at home. I mean, we're all kind of stuck here. And home is California.
Yeah, what part of California?
We're in Northern California. We're in the Silicon Valley.
Never heard of it.
I'm about 20 miles from my work, which is Draper University, and we had to cancel our spring session, but I think we're going to be able to do it in the summer. We're going to figure it out somehow.
Yeah.
So that's promising. And then the venture business has been well. I guess I don't know. Should I wait for questions?
Yeah, we were pushing over 100 now. We'll get started. So welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us. My name is Aaron Price. I'm the CEO of the New Jersey Tech Council. We are built to empower entrepreneurs and innovators. I'm really excited to welcome Tim Draper to our show today. Tim, thanks so much for joining us again. I really appreciate it. For those of you who don't know Tim, he's a very well-known investor in a variety of companies.
Wait, if they don't know me, then I'm maybe not that well known.
That's true. Other people you know probably know Tim, if you don't. He's invested in Tesla and SpaceX, in Hotmail. I think that we could probably, the list is probably shorter of the companies you aren't invested in.
Skype, and I was actually in the first video Skype call. Now that we're all doing Zoom and video.
What year was that? Remind people when that was.
I think it was 2004.
Yeah, how about
something like that. First video Skype call, and it was like a miracle. But the guys had shut down all of the. They had cut off all the audio conversation so that we could have enough bandwidth to do the video. Now it's mostly waving. Now it's just like magic. It's amazing
it is amazing
how effective this is.
It's crazy to think of what the world would be like. I actually think there'd be quite a bit more unrest if you weren't able to do things like this. There's an interesting element of humanity that this has maintained.
Yeah, there is something to that, being able to at least see people. I think that's valuable. And I think this is an interesting sociological experiment that that's been foisted on us.
It is.
I think a lot more people are trying new things. So a lot more people are trying VR. A lot more people are buying Bitcoin wallets. A lot more people are thinking about how to use data in healthcare. And these are all things that a lot of entrepreneurs have been pounding on for a long time.
Yeah.
Some that we've funded, some that we haven't. And I think it's crossing the chasm now that we're all stuck in place. So
let's get into all of that. As a quick programming note, if you, first of all, treat this as an event as if you're there in person. Jump into the chat, introduce yourself, maybe briefly what you're doing, where you're located physically. If you have questions, I will be monitoring the Q&A. I do not as good a job monitoring the chat because it tends to be a little busy, but if you have questions for Tim, put them in the Q&A and I'll try to weave them in as appropriate. But let's start with something that we were talking about.
And it'll be recorded on your website for the future, right?
This will be recorded, that's right. And we are live on Facebook. Hello to our Facebook audience. I appreciate that reminder of a program note. So before we get into some of the investment practices, what do you think is, with things that are topical, with what's going on with the pandemic, what do you believe, has been handled well? And in particular, what do you think has been some of the misses?
Well, looking at the numbers, New York and New Jersey have been hit super hard by this virus, harder than most years most of the recent years that they've had in the flu season. The US in general has been hit about average for this time of year. So this flu is not that significant across the US relative to other flus. I mean, still tragic and horrible, and it's killing people. But And then globally, this flu is less of a killer than previous flus. So running the numbers, you look and you say, this may have been, except maybe in New York and New Jersey, this may have been one of the biggest policy mistakes in the history of the world. The world shut down, the whole economy shut down, and economic activity has always increased prosperity and increased lives, extended lifespans. And now we're shutting down economic activity. That can have an adverse effect long term. I'm also a little concerned about this. I've talked to a lot of different people about it, about different ways of looking at this virus. But one that sort of scares me is that by being locked in place and wearing the masks and all that, we're losing our herd immunity. And viruses evolve, they mutate. And each year the virus comes at us in a different way, and we have to fight it off. And humans have gotten very good at fighting it off. Well, now we're not allowed to fight it off. And so what happens when the virus has another year to remutate and we have been locked in place and not gotten our herd immunity? These are all questions that I hope that all the politicians and scientists and whoever are actually considering, not just considering, what is the ramp and the curve of the virus, but also by locking us down, what's the long-term effect? How could that be very troublesome? So those are the things I'm concerned about.
We'll spend most of the next 30 minutes talking about your investment experience, but I just want to ask you a couple of follow-ups there. Are you then of the belief that you don't think the government or the states individually, maybe you're saying outside of some of the harder hit areas like New York, New Jersey, and others, that we should not have locked down?
That's the way it looks. From what I'm seeing, the numbers are flattening out. The overall number of deaths because of this virus are really no different across the country. In fact, they're less than the average over the last 5 years at this point in time. What's that?
Isn't that because of how we've reacted to an effect?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that the politicians will say, well, of course, we saved all these lives because of it. I thought the idea was a good one for maybe a couple of weeks because they couldn't handle it in the hospitals. But now the hospital, I'm sure in New York and New Jersey it's different, but the hospitals are empty and they're not providing services for the other things that the hospital needs to do because they've got, they're all concerned about the virus. I think that that now back then, how would any of us have known? Because the ramp was steep, it was a difficult thing. But now looking back, it looks a little like Y2K. It looks like, much ado about nothing. Because it was something, it was a horrible thing, but it was no different from the previous years as to the effect on people, on humanity.
I think the only thing I might counter there with, before we get into the VC side, is the previous year flu reaction and deaths statistically have been somewhat similar for many years, and we sort of understand the risk opportunity there. I think with COVID-19, it was the rate of escalation, right, was significantly.
And it was different, and it was a different looking disease. I get
right.
That. So how we responded, but I do think at this point, it's more damaging to keep us locked up. Well, maybe not in New York right now, but yeah, maybe. I think it's more damaging to keep us locked up. Now, I think if you're at risk, I think you should probably hang in there for another couple of weeks.
Yeah.
But if you're not at risk, I think it's time to get back to work. We need, we've got 26 million people unemployed that were all employed 4 or 5 weeks ago. This is unbelievable. It's terrifying.
It is.
That turns into, who knows what that takes us into.
You know, we had
If
Andrew
people
Yang
are
on.
unemployed, that can be tragic. It can be unbelievably tragic. It can
Yeah,
affect full families. It can affect, all the way down the line. So,
yeah.
focusing all on this one issue is potentially a policy issue problem. I mean, they are potentially making a serious policy mistake here.
Yeah. We may have a respectful disagreement on this one, especially because I'm in a bit of a ground zero area myself and wouldn't
Yeah,
want to
you're
see it.
in a tough spot. I get it.
But we had Andrew
I
Yang
get
on
it.
last
And a
week who
lot of
talked
people, a
about.
lot of my friends have died. A lot of horrible things have happened. But if you're a politician, you go by the numbers, and the
Right.
numbers say, hey, time to open back up.
I'm not sure they say that, but Andrew Yang talked last week on a show that we ran about, he's obviously been a big proponent of universal basic income, UBI. In effect, that's what's happened here. And I'm curious if you think that, and I promise we're going to get to the rest of the investment piece. I think this is such an important area of discussion right now in society and how we react in the business community. Do you think that was an appropriate response, the way, the stimulus checks from the government?
When you do the stimulus checks, they go to the government, and then the government makes everybody fill out forms, and it gets a little bit hectic. And then it's months, maybe even years before people actually get the checks that they need. And I think it's kind of the socialistic approach, whereas, if you had a capitalistic approach, I think you would say, look, let's do a tax holiday for a period of time so that there's plenty of money in the system. Let's extend people's credit a lot longer and cover 90% of it or something over some period of time so that they can just keep living their lives and extend their credit card rather than applying for some government program and hope that they fit into the right category and trying to manipulate it, working with lawyers and trying to figure out how they can get the money. I don't think that's a healthy way for us to operate at all. So the stimulus package, sure, you got to somehow get money into the hands of those 26 million people that you've just put out of work. But I think the way to do it is to give people a tax holiday so that there's more money in the system, and then extend credit rather than making us all beg for forms, for money, for whatever, and having that friction of the bureaucracy that keeps us from getting that money into the right hands.
So bringing this back to the venture world and investment, how has the pandemic changed your outlook? Ivan's asked a great question, which is pretty much the first question I wanted to get to on the investment side. How has this changed your approach, if any, to what you're investing in, industry or theories?
Yeah, lots of different answers to that. One is we were fortunate. I was advising my company to raise money for the last 6 months or a year and to not spend it. And fortunately, many of them did do that. And so I think that's been somewhat shored up. And so now looking at new opportunities, I think it's sort of bifurcated. It's interesting. The companies that were more virtual, anything tied to Bitcoin, anything tied to VR, anything tied to biochemical engineering, all of those, they're thriving right now. Things are going very well for them. The things that are high capital intensive, building the future of transportation, building the future of certainly anything tied to travel or hotels, those are really suffering. And we don't know, based on policy and what people do, we don't know how long that's going to last and how long those people are going to be out of work and how long those businesses are going to be suffering. And so we're not sure whether we really want to bet there.
Yeah.
And then given that we've got this like tectonic shift in the markets, it's likely not impossible, but it's it's not impossible that we get this quick V, but it's very unlikely, and it's more likely that we get this long L. Well, if we get a long L as an investor, I'm saying we need 3 years. And I want to make sure that I can support the companies I'm backing now for 3 years. So, or that they can go get their money from their customers and then grow from there. So those are the things that's the long answer to a short question.
Is it safe to say then that someone who came to you today with a potential solution in the travel industry, for instance, you would wait to see how society unfolds before you, even if you liked it, you might wait before you put any money to work?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Unless it were like, hey, I've solved the problem, no matter whether you have to be 6 feet away or not.
Yeah. Have you put any money to work in any new companies in the last 6 weeks?
Oh yeah.
What kinds of industries? All VR, Bitcoin?
Yeah, one's VR.
Yeah.
One, virtual education is going to be a big thing too, and then we're looking at a lot of things in that field.
Is it a shift in thinking, or are you reacting to, okay, the world's changed, where's there opportunity?
No, it's the only shift is what we're not kind of looking at right now. The rest of it is just wide open, looking for great entrepreneurs, trying to change the world, trying to project out 5 to 15 years and figure out what the world's going to look like and how you make it better.
Yeah.
I've been fascinated and continue to be fascinated with the decentralized world because we've always been tribal. We've always been stuck. This is my geographic territory. These are my government. You don't tread on me. I don't tread on you. That was sort of the way of thinking way back when. Then the internet happened, and all of a sudden we were all interconnected. We're all a part of this big world, and we're all doing better because of all the trade that's happened throughout the world. And now we've got decentralized money. We've got new ways of operating decentrally. You can actually govern decentrally. You can insure decentrally. So I think this decentralization is a major opportunity, all starting with these two technologies, Bitcoin on one end with the blockchain smart contracts, and AI with big data and deep learning on the other. As those two come together, we can really decentralize the world. We can make it so that more and more people can move to more of a creative, open career with lots of thought and less monotonous work. And governments are going to have to do a better job because they will have to compete with the one next door and do a better job than they did. Yeah. Because otherwise people can move their domicile. It's not easy, but it's not as hard as it used to be. And they can certainly do business anywhere in the world.
When you, as an investment thesis, do you look at categories where there is going to be a massive shift? Timothy was asking about what do you think the big next opportunity is, and he was asking about quantum computing, and you're talking about this dramatic change in culture, really. And so I'm wondering, are you out of the small market game and only looking for massive industry? I mean, regardless of the need to have unicorn-sized investments for the returns, I'm wondering if theoretically you're only looking at we're more focused around things where there's a shift in behavior in society.
Yeah, and I'll answer that in another way, which is I'm looking for companies that, if they are successful, they're going to have a huge positive impact on the world. So, and I don't know exactly what that impact will be. It's a little bit questionable as to sort of which way it's going to go, but technology marches on. It ends up providing us much better service, much better lives, longer lives, all those great things. And so I'm looking for those technologies and those businesses that are going to grow and make that kind of an impact, either on an industry or to create a new industry. Yeah. So if it's just like, hey, we've got a slightly better way to do our social media thing. I might glance at it, but it's unlikely I'd jump in. But if you're creating a whole new field, then I'm going, wait, whoa, never seen anything like this. This is really interesting. And then I look around, and if there are only 2 or 3 other groups doing it, I'm pretty likely to fund it.
Yeah, that makes sense. So let's talk about the actual entrepreneurs. First of all, what stage do you invest? And then we'll talk.
We'll invest. Generally, we're early. It might move up a little bit now because the Series A companies are now at seed valuations, and so that kind of thing is moving down. But generally, we'll back 2 girls and a dog, and we might also fund something that's. I mean, we'll fund, if we know a company super well, we'll double down big.
Yeah.
At later stages. So it's kind of either we get there early or we follow it for a long time and then we come in later.
Yeah. And as a reminder to those with questions, it's a little hard for me to read like a paragraph of text to weave it into the conversation. So short and sweet will give me a little more opportunity to weave it into the mix. I do see there's several questions in the chat that I'm not going to be able to get to, but if you put them in the Q&A, I'll do my best. Tim, how does someone get your attention if they do think they have the next big opportunity to invest in? What's the best way to get in front of you?
Oh, tim@draper.vc is my email address. And I read everything and I shoot it off to different people. I have a lot of people that I can connect it with. And, but I read them all. So go ahead, but don't send me your spam. I'll just delete you and you'll never have a connection with me again. Just send me business plans. If you've written a complete business plan and you're ready to go, or a big deck that you've really thought through, then go ahead, hit me with it.
You'll really take the time.
Otherwise, I don't really want to hear from, and that's why I give out my email address, is so that I'll get business plans, not for other reasons.
Yeah. What are some of the more unique ways that people have pitched you over the years?
Well, the best are the failed demos. Those are the most fun.
The most
and so I kind of look, and my dad was in the business too, and he took me to one of these. I didn't go to this, but anyway, he's told the story so many times, I feel like I've been there. He said, yeah, we were talking to this company that was competing with Xerox, and I took $20 from this guy and said, look, we're going to make a copy of it, an exact copy of this $20. And they put it on the machine. The whole thing burst into flames. Not just the money, but the whole machine burst into flames. And so after that, I always feel like when I see a failed demo, it's like nothing compared to what my dad saw. So go ahead, fail your demo. Don't worry about it.
What's the deal breaker for you, though? I've been with investors who say, I want someone obsessed with a long-term commitment. Don't even mention an exit. Others who say, if you haven't thought about an exit, you don't understand the business that I'm in. Are there any deal breaker topics or areas that you see?
Yeah, I don't want the entrepreneur to have an exit. I want them to feel like, this is my life. This is what I'm going to do with my life. It's very important to me, and it's important for these reasons. That said, I don't want an entrepreneur to come with me and say, here's a $50 million valuation, and then he's going to show me the market size and it's $100 million. I'm going to look and go, well, you got to take the whole market for me to do at all well in this investment. A lot of them don't think from the perspective of the investor, and maybe they should. But maybe they shouldn't. Maybe just go build your business, make great things happen. Because sometimes a small market can expand, sometimes a big market will contract. A lot of things can happen, and a lot of it is tied to the force and energy behind a great entrepreneur.
And with that in mind, what do you believe is the #1 most important trait in a successful entrepreneur?
It's probably perseverance as well. I would say passion, but then I get all these entrepreneurs come visiting me and saying, I'm very passionate about this. And I realize that they're just doing it because I said passion.
Yeah.
But I can detect passion because if I ask the right question, it just bursts out of their chest.
Yeah.
And they can't hold back. It's like, oh, because they got it all wrong at my old work. And all the customers told me it was this, and I know exactly where we can go. And there's this new technology I'm applying to this new market. And boy, is this going to be great.
Yeah.
That kind of a feeling rather than how do I get money out of you? You're my, as soon as the entrepreneur starts looking at me as being their customer, big problem.
Yeah.
They've got to think of their customer as their customer.
You've been in lots of companies that have done extremely well over the years. What's one or two that have gotten away that you regret?
Oh, God. Oh, I mean, how I missed Netflix. I was a good friend of Reed Hastings. He came in and he said, we're gonna take these DVDs and we're gonna put them in the U.S. mail. And I said, people are gonna be streaming in 6 months. What are you doing? And he said, they're not ready for that yet. I clearly made the leap and I didn't understand the process to get there. And boy, was that a huge mistake. And we've missed Google because we had 6 search engines in our portfolio already. And if Google hadn't violated the go-to patent, one of those 6 might have been a much bigger deal and Google might not have been. So, if I were in Google, it wouldn't have been as successful as it was. So
yeah.
I never feel too badly about that. But we've missed, we missed so many. I missed LinkedIn. I didn't realize that people, I knew they wanted to connect, but I also knew that some people didn't want to be connected with other people. And I didn't think that whole thing would work.
Yeah.
Boy, was I wrong. So those were some of my big mistakes.
Plenty of wins to make up for it.
Oh, yeah.
Draper,
it's been tremendous. This career has been tremendous.
I want, if you happen to, I believe you do know it, but to put you on the spot, I think it'd be worth people hearing the Draper University pledge. And I wanted to talk about a few areas there because I think it's really.
I will promote freedom at all costs. I will do everything in my power to drive, build, and pursue progress and change. My brand, my network, and my reputation are paramount. I will set positive examples for others to emulate. I will instill good habits in myself. I will take care of myself. I will fail and fail again until I succeed. I will explore the world with gusto and enthusiasm. I will treat people well. I will make short-term sacrifices for long-term success. I will pursue fairness, openness, health, and fun with all that I encounter, mostly fun. I will keep my word. I will try my best to make reparations for my digressions. Boom.
I was really hoping we were going to get the dance, and I'm glad we did.
Gotta have the dance.
Got the dance.
Mostly fun.
Yeah.
Mostly fun. The 2 things these guys remember are I will fail and fail again. That just sticks in their head. Freedom at all costs and mostly fun.
Yeah.
So if they come away 5 years from Draper University and they come away with those 3 things, I feel I've done my job.
How did you come up with that pledge? Was it looking back on what's made successful businesses?
I have a good friend who said, you're starting a school, you should have a pledge. And I thought, God, that is a great idea. And I just went and I wrote it freehand and it came right out. Like how those songwriters say, God, it just came right out. That's the way it felt. It felt like I was just compelled and it happened.
Yeah.
It was one of those magic moments and I'm thrilled I did it because it's been such a fun part of that whole school. We do a lot of odd, weird, wonderful things, but and we're doing an online school. It's coming up June 1st. We're going to have an online school.
And for people interested, where do they check it out?
DraperUniversity.com.
Yeah. That the culture of failure I think in the United States is alive and well. I wonder from your point of view if you're seeing that, in Draper University, and how you find it compares internationally, the entrepreneurs that you see.
Yeah, most of the schools think in terms of, hey, you get an A or the high score if you make no mistakes. What we were thinking is that is creating a culture of caution, and not enough energy is going into creative thinking. Somehow the people who could memorize everything, they would be the top of the class. Well, they're not the top of the world. Top of the world is a lot of people with incredible creativity and drive and dynamism. Those are the top of the world. And to get there, you need to be willing to take some chances. You need to try things, try again, adjust, try again. You have to have that in your head. And if you are constantly feeling like you can't fail, you will fail. One of the great ironies of life.
That's right.
And so we inculcate our students with, I will fail and fail again. And it's amazing. Many of them have just, like, even the ones who join big companies have been promoted and promoted and promoted and promoted because they're willing to stick their neck out. They're willing to try new things. And same with entrepreneurs. We've had amazing success with some of our entrepreneurs. We've had 1,200 students. They've started 350 companies. They've come from 86 different countries. And many of them have gotten well beyond the 10 million in revenues or whatever. One woman wouldn't have started her business without Draper University encouraging her, but she figured out how to have a fiber line go up the fallopian tube without damaging the fallopian tube and detecting whether there was cancer. She got FDA approval. She sold her business for $275 million. Great success. We taught Bitcoin about 5 years before any college taught anything to do with blockchain, any of that technology. And so 3 of our students went off and created Quantum, which became a $7 billion token. And then we have a woman running My Therapist, and it's a $30 million business, and it's therapy online in China. And before that, everyone felt like they were losing face when they did anything to do with emotional therapy. And now it's just like this, it's taking off, and it's a cultural change. So I think we've done really well with our students.
Are there any exercises in particular that you think, whether people may or may not enroll in Draper University, but certain things you say, this we've gotten right, do this?
We actually give points for reaching, whether it succeeds or fails, for trying something really extraordinary. If they just do the assignment, do a really good job on it, we just kind of give them a pat on the back. If they've tried something that just shocks everybody, whether it succeeds or if it succeeds, they get a lot of points. If it fails, they get some. So, and they work in teams, and that's quite valuable. And we're trying to take that experience, which has group hugs and all that stuff, into a world that is all virtual like this. And I think we've done it. I think it's coming, and I think it's going to be great.
Right.
I think we've done it. So far, it's all sort of in paper.
Well, I hope it succeeds, but we'll still give you credit.
Here's how we're going to lay it out.
Yeah. Jan with ACX Tech in the Philippines, and I'm a big fan of those guys, was asking about what should be in a pitch deck to stand out. You've got, you're saying you'll check your email, which I think everybody here is enormously appreciative of, but we've got, 90 seconds of your attention before you're moving on.
Good point. 90 seconds. I don't want to hear your life story. I mean, I might want to hear that if I really get interested in what you're doing. I want to know what you're doing, why it's important, how big's the market, how you're going to make money. You get that into that one piece, it's very easy for me. I just go, oh, interesting, 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 interesting. Now I want to know more about her life story.
And
So
I think
that,
yeah.
I mean, get to the point. Get to the point.
The goal
From the very first line.
Yeah.
This is what we do. Boom.
Yeah. With the goal only to get that next meeting, right? You're not getting an email and writing a check. And I find a lot of entrepreneurs try
You want to get a meeting.
To get a meeting, that's right. To get a meeting. But it's not that.
And then when you get the meeting, make sure you and your co-founders all kind of get along and practice working together on the pitch. And then the other thing is, because we'll sense that right off the bat. If two of you want to be CEO and you still haven't figured that out, that's a big red flag for us. If you don't really have your heart in it, do something else. Being an entrepreneur is way too hard. If this isn't what you were meant to do with your life, don't bother the venture capitalists, don't bother your own world. Stick with a regular job or find something that really matters to you, that you really want to be a part of. I mean, after 34 years, I can filter that out really quickly. The one who just kind of felt like they had to start a business.
Yeah.
You gotta need it to happen, and you gotta have a path to get there, and you gotta show how you're gonna make money doing it.
Yeah. Someone asked about how do you manage investing in competitive companies, and they were referencing Jetpack Aviation and Gravity Industries, but are you someone who likes to invest across a few companies in a vertical, or pick a winner and keep your money there?
Yeah, we always tell everybody that we'll invest in competitors, because we might get enamored in a market and then miss it. Reason we didn't do Google, but all my partners said that's directly competitive with direct hit. And so we can't do it. Well, that was a huge mistake. I should have backed Google. I brought it in and said, hey, this is kind of interesting. Should we do another search engine? Yeah, we will back competitors. And what's really interesting is, I'll give you an example of why it works perfectly fine. Activision, Microsoft, and Lotus were all direct competitors in the software world. They are so far different from each other now, because over time, the leader of the company will take them all into different directions, and they'll evolve, and different things will happen. And so even if they look like they're direct competitors now, they won't be down the road, or it's rare that they still are down the road.
Yeah.
The other thing is, I look at it as Coke and Pepsi. If you back two companies that are similar, you can always refer to both of them for a story in the press, for an event, for where you can build a category, where you can build an industry around those two companies or three companies, instead of just saying, I invested in this, and they're out there on their own, kind of figuring it out in this world. So actually backing two or three in an area, that kind of gets you more credibility, I guess.
Yeah.
And that industry gets more credibility from having more than one.
Yeah.
But I know that I have had founders who said, God, why'd you back the other guy? And they have a little bit of frustration with it, but that's the reason.
Yeah. When you first started out, there was not nearly the amount of capital in venture as there is today. I wonder if that's changed how you get your deal flow. And two, flipping the chairs around a little bit, why should entrepreneurs come to Draper?
Oh, well, the deal flow thing, we get more deals than we've ever had in the history of the world. And I think it's because I've got a high profile. We got Meet the Drapers. We got a show now that's where people can invest in. It's like Shark Tank, but they can invest.
Yeah.
We have the school has created a whole bunch of scouts for me. My profile is so high, I get 2 or 3 business plans when I walk through the airport. It is so our deal flow has never been bigger. And so now we got to filter through all that and do whatever. Why Draper? Well, we have the Draper Venture Network, so we can connect you with people all over the world. We have 24 relationships with venture funds. They cover about 48 cities, and so we can connect you with people anywhere in the world. And as a result of this network, we have a CEO summit that brings together all our CEOs, and we connect them with the CEOs of Fortune 500 and business development people from Fortune 500 who come to see, because we have so many in our portfolio. And we'll also, it depends, but we can keep you out of that early trouble.
Yeah.
Because I've seen it for 34 years.
Yeah, hopefully infuse some of that fun in the process.
Yeah,
Fun,
mostly fun.
Mostly fun. This group is also a community of people who want to. It's not just how can this other person help me, but how can we help one another. So I wonder to ask, flip that question to you as well. How can you've spent a good amount of time with us today, and I really appreciate it. How can we all potentially do something to help you?
Oh, terrific. Well, you're so nice to say that. I'm happy if I see some interesting business plans. I'm happy if investors decide they want to fund me, get involved in one of my funds. I'm happy if the school, if Draper University gets more students, and I'm happy if people buy my book.
The book is called?
It's called How to Be the Startup Hero.
How to Be the Startup Hero.
Yeah, and I released it last year, and it's been great for people. It's really interesting. People, if they're willing to, it's a heavy read. Honestly, it's a heavy read. It was really kind of textbook for Draper University of Heroes. But it's also, I think there's some gems in there. So if you can kind of plow through, you can get a lot out of it. And anyway, it was fun for me to write. I wrote it on my iPhone because I did so much traveling. So I don't know if I'll ever write another book. I can't travel.
And I think probably you're better off.
That may be it. There's your one shot at a book.
And probably a good chance you're more skilled at venture investing than salesmanship for your own book. So we'll follow up and make sure we help promote the book, because it can't be that as difficult to get through as you mentioned, but I'm sure I know it's really valuable. And hopefully we'll see you if we can leave our doors again. I know we've been talking about hosting you at the Propelify Innovation Festival, and with a little luck, maybe we'll be able to have another discussion there. We've also been talking about doing a tech leaders talent show for charity. And so I'm going to put you on the spot. If I'm expecting this to move forward, will you share some talent with us if we move forward with that?
Well, here's a great thing about talent. I started with none, but I still sing karaoke and create my own songs. And I tried dancing a little once in a while. I can act a little. I don't really have a lot of talent.
Well, that's all right. If we can raise money for a cause, maybe you'd be willing to embarrass yourself.
But I'm happy to, put on a costume, do whatever. That never stopped me.
I first met Tim as an EIR at DFJ Gotham in New York when you showed up to the annual meeting and did start with the song. So I have always appreciated that. Yeah,
and we did were you there for the Gotham party? We got dressed up as Batman, and
I've seen video of the Gotham party. That was a little before.
We had Poison Ivy and Cat. I'm pretty sure there was a Catwoman and a few Jokers. It was really hilarious. Great fun. Well,
we'll try to do that again, online or off, the next time we see you. I really appreciate it. The other thing that we do at the festival to drive a sense of fun and collaboration is high five your neighbor, which is a little challenging to do virtually. However, on the count of three, I know we still have, 130 of you watching. So I know you're all home or locked up somewhere, but this is gonna be our small sense of humanity and community. You can, even though we can't see you, you're gonna feel weird. You're gonna high five your computer screen. So Tim, the count of three, will high five each other. I really appreciate you spending time with us today. For those of you who haven't seen the rest of the NJTC emails, on Friday we have our Economic Outlook webinar. Next week we're interviewing America's BFF, Al Roker, who also turns out to be an entrepreneur. We've got quite a bit of other great programming. If you're not yet a member, go to njtc.org, learn more about the organization, how we can help you build your business, bring more amazing people like Tim Draper to the menu. On the count of three, this high five, Tim. 1, 2, 3. Thanks so much. Boom.
Hey.
Be well, stay safe. Have a good time in California. Thanks, everybody.
Terrific. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.